Hello there, one and all. He's Ralph. I'm Peter. Let's do this. In this episode, we're going to be talking about three things. So, firstly, the positive use of AI. Secondly, the future of X after Musk told advertisers to do one. And the third thing is how AI is expected to affect jobs in finance and insurance and other areas. So, in terms of the first actual subject that we're going to talk about today, so this is the positive use of AI. So, this is the use. I thought there were some interesting stories about how AI has been used for the force for good, if you like, because there's a lot of press has been concentrating on it's going to take all our jobs. What's the point in living, etc. But I think that it is good to hear about some of the good things that AI will be used for. So, for instance, in retail, the idea is it is already being started to be used for checking inventory levels, measuring demand, and also taking in using other variables to make sure that things are stocked correctly, so all the right things are in the right places at the right time. So I think that's a fantastic, that's a fantastic use of AI. Just before we launch into it, I did. When I was talking to Ralph before this, to talk about this, I mentioned this, and I thought this would be an interesting thing to say. Is that when I was working in Japan, quite a long time ago, probably about 20 years ago. There was a convenience store, there still is, called 7-Eleven. I believe 7-Eleven Japan is different from the 7-Eleven in America, although everything looks the same, but they are different companies. But there's 20 years ago, right? Bear in mind, 20 years ago, 7-Eleven was seen to be right at the cutting edge in terms of convenience stores. For those of you who don't know, Japan is famous for many things, including things like vending machines, but also the sheer number of convenience stores, which are, as the name would suggest, extremely convenient because they're open very long hours. They sell all sorts of things in there, and and they're really actually they're quite fun places to go. If you're quite bored. But anyway, the thing is that they sell so many different things that it is imperative for them to have the right things at the right time. And 7-Eleven was one of the ones was at the cutting edge because it used to do things like look at forward weather forecasts, look at other weather patterns, look at buying patterns. When do people buy? What time do they buy? And analysing all this data to make sure that when you go into the convenience store, they have what it is you want. So that was 20 years ago. They were pulling in all sorts of data at that point. Fast forward to now, and the AI is being used to do an even better job. So, what do you think? What are your thoughts on the use of AI for this kind of thing?
Unfortunately, I haven't got many thoughts because I stopped listening to you after you said it is fun to go to the convenience store.
It is.
I'm just going to have to enunciate very slowly here so that people understand what you actually said. It is fun to go to the convenience store. Yeah, all right, cool.
Yeah,
it
is
perfect.
It is.
Party
where
on.
you could. I mean, you can have your steamed your curry bun as well. Those are great. Have you ever had one of them? It's like basically Japanese curry.
I haven't been to the convenience store lately, so no.
Curry pads. There's just loads. It's a great place to go. Anyway, sorry. Carry on.
No, cool. Okay, so still recovering from this idea. I think it's a fantastic application to use AI for this. I mean, AI obviously, or maybe not obviously, but AI has some of its uses most naturally in the field of pattern recognition. But that is, of course, not what AI is isolated for. It is also extremely fecund, let's say, in the analysis of lots of data. So there you have large data sets And AI, again, is basically finding patterns in this data in terms of the machine learning algorithms which can be used, which can be AI powered. And so basically what we have here is a situation where we've got lots and lots of data, reams of data, and they have to be correlated in some particular way, and they have to be analyzed in a particular way. And an application to retail is something which really makes sense and stands to reason. Because if you think about this, retail is actually a very difficult job to do right. People like me don't really appreciate that very much, because all I ever go is to a retail store and buy some stuff. I mean, I may not go to the convenience store, although I hear it's super fun to
Oh,
do so.
it is,
Yeah,
it really
no,
is.
I
Yeah,
mean, unbelievable.
yeah.
Uh, Party on. But but I'm so sorry. But basically, if I was to go to the convenience store, all I would see is reams of shelves full of, let's say, soda and some other like washing powder and stuff like that. But obviously, from the point of view of the person who runs the convenience store or the supermarket, the goods which the customer will want to purchase when they enter the store have to be there. They have to be on the shelf. But then obviously, there is a scarcity of space, and so you cannot always stock everything a customer might actually wish to purchase. It just has to be there almost like on a just-in-time basis. It has to be there when the customer comes in. In an ideal world, you would basically have no inventory at all. You would just
Mm,
basically have one or two items, which are just exactly those items which are to be sold to the customer who comes in. So
mm,
in order to make this predictive, therefore, you will look at tons and tons of data. You will look at the history which you have in terms of what have customers bought in the past, how much have they bought, what is the average basket size
mm,
of the things they're buying, where do I need to locate these items in the store so that they are easily findable and easily accessible.
mm,
This is known as the customer journey. The
mhm,
customer has actually not prescribed, but a orchestrated journey through the store, which
mm.
takes them past all the various items that they are likely to want,
Yep.
and they are situated at eye level, those products which you wish,
Mm,
which, well, the supermarket doesn't want to push anything, but those items which are in the experience of the person who analyzes the data more often demanded, they are put
mm,
at eye level of the customer, etc. So
mm,
this is how this is optimized. But then through the use of AI, you're basically able to analyze lots and lots more data, which I would call adjacent data which are not necessarily um, central to the customer journey, such as what kind of items do you buy, how many do you buy, what price point do you buy at, but other things which may be sounding a little bit counterintuitive when I'm going to mention them. Things like meteorological data. Is it going to rain? But the link is kind of obvious, because none of us goes out in the rain to do some shopping unless we absolutely have to.
mm,
And so it's the sort of footfall of the customer which comes into maybe a clothes shop or a designer store. You go there because you wish for the shopping experience to be interesting as well. It's an interesting day out. You may not go to the convenience store, may not be that much fun, but you are going to have a lot of fun. We go out in London in Bond Street, you go to the Armani shop or whatever you might do, and so it is an entire customer experience, which obviously is not going to be as good when it's raining.
mm,
And retail businesses know this. They have known this for years. They are professionals. They know that customer footfall drops off on days
mm,
when it's raining. Now you have, with the improvement of meteorological forecasting, pretty good forecasts for the next sort of 2 to 3 days. The
mm,
predictive quality decays after that, but it's pretty good for 2 or 3 days. And if you know, therefore, with some reasonable um, certainty that it is going to rain on certain days within the next 3 or 4 days window, you will know that during that time you can expect less customer footfall, and therefore you need to have less inventory um, in the shop during these days, because less customers are going to come in. Now, all of this data needs to be correlated. It needs to be analyzed in accordance with certain algorithms which you may have which you develop, and this is a mainstay of AI to do this efficiently, and also with a certain amount of originality, even because the AI will be able to look at the data which you collate, find patterns in the data, and in accordance with these patterns, develop new algorithms which heighten your insight into footfall patterns and commensurately, therefore, inventory levels which you have to well, inventory levels, full stop.
I mean, I
And
think the thing is
it's brilliant.
yeah, I mean, I think the thing is what is beautiful about this particularly is that, it can be very sort of location uh, focused. So it
Mhm.
enables people rather than see again what used to happen, I believe, with 7-Eleven in Japan is there was like a central office, and all the data would be so all the data from all the tills, everything would all go to the central place, and then it sounded like there was a bit of like a missive goes out. You must stock this, 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 this. Whereas I would have thought that AI would I mean, well, I suppose you could still centralize it, but it would enable people in different locations to stock different things at different times, which again just continues to improve the inventory situation, make sure that you've got everything in the right place. I mean, just to say how much fun, to reiterate how much fun these places are. Where could you go in the UK, a small shop where you could go in? I bet I virtually guarantee in Japan you'd be able to go in, buy an umbrella, get get a strawberry potato salad sandwich with washed down with an electrolyte drink called Calpis. That's spelt Calpis, by the way.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah. I wanted to clarify that. And then maybe you might want to have a packet of dried squid with a beer as dessert, right? I mean, I know that's a pretty horrendous combination, but my point is that you could get all of those. I virtually guarantee you could get all of those items in any convenience store over there. And see, that's how much fun it is. But the thing is that because there are so many different items, it is important to know when the right time is to stock them. And AI is a great way of is a great way of doing that.
Yeah, unless it actually results in a range of items on offer in convenience stores of the nature which you just mentioned, in which case I
Absolutely.
don't think I will ever want to go
Did
to
you
the
know
convenience stores you go to.
there's another drink which is sort of similar to was of the same ilk as the one that I said that sounds like something else, and it's called Pocari Sweat. Have you ever had that?
I heard of that.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you say, like electrolyte type drink, and
When we
people
were in
just
Japan together, you gave me that to
yeah,
drink.
I think I did. I think
Yeah,
I'm sure I would. It's exactly the sort of thing I would have done. And I remember when I first saw them, I thought, I wonder whether they're these little kind of pokari, like these little furry little animals called pokaris that are like constantly like running on a treadmill and stuff, and they're soaking up all their sweat and pouring it into a bottle. But no,
yeah.
that's not actually the case.
You're
But
not selling it. You're not selling it to me.
no, no, fair enough, fair enough.
But it was actually
Anyway.
a really nice drink, if if
Yeah, it
if I
was. Yeah,
remember
it is.
rightly.
I mean, when you get over the name of these things, then actually it's surprisingly okay. But anyway, there we go. So let's move on then to the next topic of conversation, which is about the future of X. After Musk was very rude to advertisers last week, he was rude. Okay, here's the situation: is that Twitter relies very much on, or Twitter relied very much on advertising for revenues. Then he in the build up to Musk buying it, he was talking about how he wanted it to rely less on advertising revenues and more on things like subscriptions. So that's where the whole kind of Twitter Blue and that all came in. All that and the tick thing, the verified and all that stuff. So that's where that's where they were. Advertisers have abandoned because they wondered where it was all going. They continue to abandon because the he when Musk came along, he basically cut out loads of moderators. The content went a bit wild, and advertisers did not want to be associated with inappropriately placed adverts. So the exodus continued. As time went on, it looked like his stance on advertising as a revenue stream softened because he got in a new CEO called Linda Yaccarino, who was very much from an advertising background. And he's now dealt her this massive curveball. She must have been sitting there going, "Oh, what has he done now?" But anyway, I'm sure she likes a challenge. So this is where we are at the moment. So on the one hand, it sounds like Elon Musk doesn't really want to rely on advertising long term, but realizes equally that it is a necessary evil, at least for the short term. But having said that, he said this last week. Everyone's assuming, oh, this is terrible. Everyone's going to, they're all going to leave. And they are leaving. I would suggest that they're not necessarily leaving because of him. But I think it's a really great excuse to use for them to say, oh, we're not doing it because he's done this. So anyway, but what do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I actually watched the interview with Elon,
Yeah.
and so I watched it because I was interested. I didn't know that he was going to say what he did, and which has,
Mm.
of course, now become viral on various social media platforms.
Mm.
And so I was, well, to put it mildly, surprised to hear such a succinct but uncompromising advice.
Yeah.
Because he said, advertisers, please go away and have sexual intercourse with yourselves. Well, he
Yes.
said it a lot more succinctly than that and using more florid words, which I'm not going to repeat.
Yeah.
We all know what he said. Now, interestingly, your wrap up of the history is very good, very concise. I think there's perhaps one other aspect to it as well, which is that Elon Musk is a bit of a free speech enthusiast, as we all know, and he wanted to. Well, he not necessarily wanted to buy Twitter in order to make it an open platform again, but certainly after having purchased it, that is very much his strategy. And in his own words, he wants X to be an open marketplace. And when he says marketplace, he thinks of the sort of Greek agora, where people were meandering about and having discussions in open um, in open understanding and intellectual discourse, public discourse. That's what he kind of wishes X to be. And he wants it to be entirely free of whatever you want to say, you can say there. But sometimes this results in people saying things which are, well, to put it mildly, controversial.
Mm-hmm.
And Musk is then sometimes jumping into the fray and supporting this controversial content or these controversial opinions by reposting them. Actually, I
Mm.
found out the word. You can't say tweet anymore. You have to say post. That's the word
Post.
to use. Yeah.
Okay.
You can't say X. Re-Xing them, that doesn't really work.
No.
So
No.
by by reposting them, and apparently he did repost one particular statement which people have likened to anti-Semitism. I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
you remember the various bits and pieces which have surrounded this event we're talking about here. And that created obviously controversy and led to some advertisers leaving. I mean, advertisers were leaving anyway, as you pointed out, but they were also leaving because of this specific controversy. Specifically, Disney chose to leave, and Disney, of course, had their own brush with controversy recently when they were remaking or announced that they were going to remake their 1937 cartoon Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but then cast the dwarves as a group of multi-gendered,
Ethnically diverse.
ethnically diverse group
Yeah.
of actors,
Mhm.
which again incited an animated debate, let's say, about the appropriateness of this particular casting strategy. But this is just for context. So basically, this is basically why Disney left, and I think that is one reason why Elon spoke so uncompromisingly about advertisers. So what he then said, I'm not going to repeat the words, of course, but what he then said is, well, then advertisers don't advertise. Go away and don't advertise. He didn't say away, but I'm not gonna. I really want
Yeah.
to say it, but I won't. So go away and don't advertise. And then he even waved and named Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, by name. He said, "Hello, Bob." So this was an open. Uh, this couldn't possibly be taken as an undirected comment
Mm.
uh, made at a group of advertisers. So there we are. Now the situation now is that I of course do not know Elon Musk at all, but
Mm.
he has recently made one other statement which I found interesting. He said, well, actually this was in the context of the same interview. He said, people sometimes believe they wish to be me, but they wouldn't want to be me. My mind is not a pleasant place to be. It is like a storm. And it's interesting. I'm of course not a psychologist, so I don't really know what that means, but I can possibly empathize. I think, and I've said this before on this show many times, Elon Musk is clearly a creative genius, and he's also an intellectual genius, and we cannot measure genii by the standards of normal people like me. I may find some of the things he says brusque and lacking filter, but that is what comes with the territory. If we want genii to develop technology which changes the world and is visionary, then we can perhaps not also want, or we can want, but maybe we shouldn't be surprised if these people don't conform to the
Mm.
same rules of public discourse as we would choose to stick
Mm.
with. Um, so I think that Elon Musk is perhaps living in a constant state of disappointment with himself because he responds constantly to stimuli around him, has so many ideas. That's where the storm metaphor comes from. Some
Mm.
of the ideas he is able to bring to commercial fruition,
Mhm.
others he may be able to bring to a conceptual design, but many of them he will simply have to discard. And so he might see that as a constant roiling space of disquiet. And
Mm.
I think that perhaps is the background at, before which we need to evaluate some of the remarks which he makes, which look to be unfiltered remarks to us.
Mm.
So in the end, what does it mean for X? Well, X is clearly a platform which does depend or rely on its revenue to a material extent on advertisers. Will advertisers permanently leave the platform because Elon had a few brusque words to say in an interview? I would find that difficult to believe. Advertisers are businesses. The people who run them are business people, and they would only not advertise on X, it seems to me, if the platform lost all interest. Yes, of course, some will wish to stay away if they associate X with a platform that perhaps promotes controversial ideas they wish not to to be associated with, absolutely. But on bulk, so to speak, the sector of advertisers, I don't think is going to abandon X just because of these comments. Which therefore brings us to we are sort of back at the normal, back where we would always be when we discuss the future of a business. What is the attractiveness of X? If Elon Musk is able to transform this platform into the open platform for public discourse he wants it to be, and then clearly it is going to remain attractive to users and advertisers are going to stay. So I think it's a bit of a storm in a teacup, perhaps, which is heightened by the sensationalist value of Elon Musk's comment, but possibly not much more than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I'm going to wheel this one out. So, I wondered. So, this is a theory of mine that I think that maybe this is Musk trying to distance himself from X because he is seen as X. He is the X man, I think, in this case, and I think that he. I wonder whether he is trying to do this so that this in a strange way may make Linda Yaccarino more of a force, that she is going to be gradually pushed more to the front of X and take more of the, become more of the personality of X with Elon in the back seat, perhaps. And I think the problem is because everyone follows him so closely that it is difficult for people to break the ties with him. So I wonder whether, I mean, although it may look like it's self-destructive to do things like this, maybe it's his way of trying to distance himself. And this is where my theory comes in. It's a bit like Justin Bieber, right? So I don't think that Musk is often compared to Justin Bieber, but let's just run with it. So Justin Bieber, squeaky clean image, popular teen idol, all good, right? And then he comes to a stage where he thinks, do you know what? I don't want this anymore. I want to be taken seriously as an artist, and and I want to have an adult audience. So he starts swearing. He does. He gets caught in dodgy nightclubs. Gets himself covered in tattoos. Buys Lamborghinis and goes crashing into things. This sort of destroying the image that he's taken so long to build, in order that people then make that break with him and think, actually, no, he's not that guy that he used to be. He is now this. Maybe Musk is going to be doing stuff like this to try to break, to have some kind of break from his almost complete association with X. And although this will be a pain for Yaccarino initially, in actual fact, I wonder whether this will help her, because people will want to hear someone who is more amenable to advertisers, which she definitely is. So there you go.
So would you then say that he deliberately casts himself as a bit of a maverick in order to, because you said distance himself from X? Would that not that wouldn't really distance himself, would it? That would
No, it's not. It's not really. Well,
forge
it's
an even closer tie.
yeah. I mean, okay. So I suppose it's more a case of, at the moment, everyone sees he is X. Linda Yaccarino's some newcomer. He is X, because there was so much controversy about the whole thing. I mean, oh God, I forgot his guy's name now. I mean, thingy, the guy, the guy that founded it. He was Twitter. And then Musk come. Actually, he left and then he came back, and then Musk is become Twitter. So my point is, I'm thinking maybe he wants to be less the company, and maybe let that give Yacarino space to move into, so that she can become the face of the company rather than him. But
Okay, I see.
that's the
I,
idea.
I, I I don't know. I mean, I obviously have no idea who Elon Musk is. I never met the man, and
Mhm.
I just don't know. But it doesn't seem to me as if he makes these comments by design.
Mm,
It just doesn't. It doesn't convince me. When you see him on stage, that was a completely unforced comment,
mm,
which um, and if you remember, he's done things like this before. I mean, once I think he tweeted. That's not correct to say because it was Twitter at the time.
I wouldn't have picked you up on that, but yeah,
Oh, no, it's very
yeah,
important.
yeah, yeah.
Musk always corrects himself. So he tweeted something about, I think, taking Tesla public, and he ran foul of SEC governance on that and stock
Mm,
market rules. So that's something which was a big controversy at the time. Then, if
mm,
you remember, he put billions of dollars into cryptocurrency
mhm,
as an investment, stuffed the Tesla balance sheet full of that particular asset.
mm,
And then 2 weeks later, I mean, I don't know exactly, but it was a time period measured in weeks. 2 weeks later, he said, yeah, cryptocurrency is against our values. It's statements like that. I mean, I keep saying he's creative genius, and that's absolutely true, but that doesn't mean, of course, that he is the oracle of wisdom in everything he says.
mm,
Quite,
mm,
quite far from it. And this kind of erratic, or let's say volatile um, volatility to his statements also, I think, creates volatility in the investments of his companies, because to some extent he's, of course, well, as you said, he's Mr. X, and he is the public face of his companies as well.
mm,
So you would think that he also would feel some responsibility to manage the financials of his companies um, in the interest of all those who have a vested interest
mm,
in his company. So customers, importantly investors, uh, and also employees.
mm,
And at Tesla, he does that. At Tesla, employees have actually stock options.
mhm,
So the management style at Tesla is very clearly aligned with the interests of the employees.
mm,
If he comes out and makes statements of this nature, even potentially or theoretically jeopardizing an important revenue stream for the company
mm,
of X, then you might say that in that particular instance, he perhaps jeopardized a management style that is in similar alignment with the interests of his employees, with the interests of other people um, who have a vested interest in the company, like investors.
mm.
Um, Advertisers, I'm going to exclude from this list because advertisers are a business themselves, and as I said before, I think they are going to be just neutral on this, and um, and and will use the X platform for advertisements if
Mm.
indeed the platform is still
Yeah,
attractive to them in terms of their
yeah,
numbers
exactly.
of
They're not. They're
users.
not going to let anything like this. If
I don't think so.
if it works for them, they'll do it. That's basically it.
Exactly. Exactly.
um, let's go on to the final topic. So
Yes.
that is how AI is expected to affect jobs in finance and insurance and other areas. So the reason why we talk about this one is because there was a government report, the Future Skills report, which basically tried to lay out which occupations
Mhm.
would be most and least affected by the development of artificial intelligence. Sorry. And I think that, firstly, I think that the report will no doubt be wrong, because I think that we are at a very early stage. AI is developing very quickly, and I suspect that what happened is at some point someone in the government would have, rushed into meeting rooms, said, "Right, everyone, this Chat GPT thing is getting a bit out of hand. Right, some people think this is the end of work as we know it. We need to do some kind of report to think about which occupations are going to survive, which are going to develop with AI, which aren't going to develop with AI. Let's do a report on it." So that's what they've got to do. They come out with what they think is what they well intentioned, and basically as a result of that, we get this. Now, I'd say that this is probably going to be proved to be wrong, because these kind of things, they have to do that. They have to do that. There would be something wrong if they didn't try to at least do this. But the thing is that AI is developing so quickly, and the regulations are still developing, that I don't think no one really knows which direction it's going to go in at the moment, which is why I think that I'm sure that some of the conclusions will be wrong. However, having said that, I think there are a number of things which can be taken into account here. So I think that jobs that involve repetition, ones that involve analysis of patterns, as you were talking about earlier,
Mm.
those kinds of things could be vulnerable. And so they were mentioning in various articles how some jobs in finance, insurance, in law could actually be vulnerable. And there was even that story about PwC, the accountancy firm, which is looking at offering a chatbot that analyzes deals. I mean, sounds great if you don't work in PwC's deal making department, but all those kinds of things are going to happen. So, Ralph, what do you think?
Yeah, we did a podcast on this very topic ourselves, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
A few weeks ago, maybe a month ago or
Mm.
so, where I was chatting a little bit through my life as an analyst, and we were
Mm.
comparing which parts of my job uh, might be doable by AI and which
Mm.
parts may not be. But I was just chuckling away to myself while you were speaking about this particular report. Would it not have been funny if the report had said government report writers are going to be made redundant by
Yeah,
AI?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
in fact, writers might well be also on the line here. There's another news story where allegedly Sports Illustrated articles have been
Yes.
written by AI, by somebody who
I
doesn't
didn't even
exist.
know they did articles, to be honest. I
No,
thought they just did photos.
yeah, I
But I don't know.
understand.
Maybe mistaken. That's my mistaken perception of
No,
what kind of publication this is.
not at
So
all.
yeah,
I read Playboy for the interviews as well.
of course you do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's quite amusing. So apparently, Sports Illustrated articles, to the extent that they actually exist, are
Mm.
now allegedly have been written by AI.
Yeah.
So what do I think about all this? Well, the first thing is that I've said this before. AI, the type of ChatGPT AI, which is LLMs, large language models, are basically convolutional neural nets.
Yeah.
And what these guys are doing, and I'm not going to go into any detail of that, so you can all breathe a sigh of relief because it's very technical, very
Yeah.
boring. But basically, what these guys are doing is they have a large set of data, and then they just basically uh, go through these data bit by bit by bit.
Mm.
By bit, I mean area by area. And they kind of compare them with the target uh, image or token that you give the AI the task to recognize,
Mhm.
let's say a picture of a dog or something, and you would break down the data set into curved spaces which look like ears, pointy maybe if you look for cats. And
Mhm.
I know this sounds really, really weird what I'm saying, but that's actually how it's done. And it does it many times and through many layers, which are hierarchical layers of pattern recognition. And then towards the end, something comes out. It is compared with the target result. Does it look like a cat or not? And if it doesn't look like a cat, then the system goes back through all of its layers and optimizes the various parameters which it has. And in terms of LLMs, I mean, we may all think about parameters if we are so thinking back to the sort of equations we were forced to handle at school when we were learning mathematics. Well, how many parameters might there be? I mean, in a normal polynomial, maybe there are like 5 parameters or so. But this is, of course, not what we're talking about here. We're talking about billions of parameters. This is not an exaggeration. And all of these are being fine-tuned to produce the result we want. Now, that's just a little bit for context. So this type of system does one thing well, and that is obviously pattern recognition. I say obviously because that is what it is designed to do. It is designed to recognize patterns. And therefore, every job which in essence concerns itself with the recognition of patterns is these are the first jobs which I think are on the line. And my classic example is always radiographers. These are not radiologists. These are the sort of maybe you have something wrong with yourself, a sports accident or something, and you are being put into an MRI machine. And the readout from the MRI machine is first given the once over by a radiologist who look at the data set, well, look at the image and say, oh, well, this is actually harmless, or this is perhaps more severe, and then they are being triaged, so to speak, for the radiologist, who is the surgeon or the doctor, to look at later and develop a treatment plan. Now, it's already been shown that AI is far more accurate in I'm not going to use the word diagnosis because that's what the doctor does, in the recognition of potential diseases or anomalies from MRI output, from MRI scans. So far more accurate and obviously, not surprisingly, far quicker. And so I would not, for example, be surprised to see maybe in a year or so, maybe in 2, certainly within 5 years, something like a center of radiographical analysis to emerge as part of the NHS, where every single MRI scan is being read by AI and pre-triaged out to the various surgeons and doctors in the NHS, and of course also nurses who are all working together when the treatment plan is being designed.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because you're basically training the model, aren't you? The whole time training the model, and then it gets better and better and better.
That's
With
right,
the
exactly.
more that it gets. So yes, that makes eminent sense. Yeah.
Exactly. And because the report was written to take a look at jobs specifically in finance and insurance. And that's another example. In insurance, I know that the work of claims adjusters is already being done by AI. And claims adjusters, that's the sort of person who kind of goes, somebody has an accident, they call it into the insurance company sends out the claims adjuster, who takes a look at the accident, takes photos of what's of the damage, and assesses how much the claim is going to be, how much money the insurance company will have to pay out in order to make good on that particular claim. That's what a claims that excuse me That's what a claims adjuster does. But in doing this, of course, they create data, they create documents, they fax. They fax. I'm still in the 18th century, aren't I? What is this, Ralph? This word you
Yeah.
used in the
Yeah.
podcast.
Yes. That's.
Um,
Yeah.
they send they send it back to the company. There are the data, there are the photos, it's all there, and these this evidence forms the basis for the office-based claims adjuster to go through it and
Mm,
evaluate the claim.
mm,
This activity is already done by AI.
mhm.
And when I was an insurance analyst, what companies do, they take you out on sort of corporate days where you get information and where they talk to you a little bit about their processes and what
Yeah.
they're doing. And I'm not going to name the name of this company, but on one of these days, the management of this company told us that their processes on claims adjustment are now AI assisted, and they are able to read 10,000 claims
Mm,
forms per
yeah.
minute.
Yeah.
So no prizes for guessing. I'm not going to read as many per
Mm,
minute, and that is the sort of thing where AI is going to, and I'm going to use one word first and then I'm going to correct myself, because I was about to say where AI is doubtless going to replace
mhm,
jobs. And that may well be true, but I think what is more likely to happen is actually that AI is going to complement and
mm,
support existing jobs.
mm,
In this specific example, I don't know. Claims adjustment might well be something which
mhm,
AI could do itself and
mhm,
replace it. Radiography, I think, is definitely something which AI could
mm,
replace. But in the context of the entire treatment plan, which the surgeon or the doctor develops, in this context, AI needs to be seen as complementary, and
mm,
it won't replace the surgeon, it won't replace the person developing the treatment plan, and of course also not everybody on the medical staff who is part of
yeah.
that medical treatment plan, nurses, etc. So I think to that extent we can be maybe a little bit less gloomy. AI is, I don't think, going to replace all the jobs,
Mm,
but some jobs are of course going to be replaced.
mm,
That is just a fact of technological progress which we have
yeah.
always seen since the Industrial Revolution. And what I would say to that is that of course it is um, it, it is good for the society at large for these
Mm,
for this progress to occur. It is a tragedy for that person, the specific person, to lose their job.
mm,
But then I think there has to be something where they either can be retrained or, weird word coming up, upskilled. So
mm,
given skills which are more relevant in the modern world of technology.
mm,
Or if they're as old as I, then you're too old to be retrained. And then you unfortunately have to just say, well, then society has to have systems which
mm,
catch people like that
yeah.
and have a social benefit system um, to make them able to live a well, meaningful life in retirement.
Yeah.
And
Well said.
that's where the journey is going to go, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. So no, I think that's very interesting. Obviously, this is going to pop up all the time.
Hmm.
But the thing I just wanted to quickly end on is I think you need to tell people why you are wearing gloves.
Yes,
Because
I
this will
think
be something that people who are watching this will be thinking, why is he going for a workout? Has he got a barbell under his desk? I mean, what's going on?
no, I'm getting old, and I think this is cool. So I really want to look cool, but
Yeah.
but I look like a plonker. So
Yeah.
no, I forgot to switch the heating on in this room,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, you've been to our place, haven't you?
Yeah,
And
yeah, I have
so
indeed. Yeah.
recently, and this room, as you will remember, is goes right out onto the terrace, and
Yes.
now it's cold, and so the wind blows from the terrace onto the
Yeah.
windows which we have here, and it
Yeah.
makes everything bitter cold. And I forgot to switch the heating on, guys, before I came out here, and so so
Just
this explains the cardigan as well and
yeah.
everything.
I mean, this is what it's all about, right? Keeping it real for the people.
Keeping it real.
Yeah. So,
Shivering
and
away.
here I am like this, but all I would say myself is that I am able to rely on a very warming and thick layer of subcutaneous fat in order to insulate me against the ravages of cold. Also, this is the smallest room in this house, and literally, someone asked me the other day. They said, how do you keep warm? And I said, well, I just have to breathe, really. And that essentially heats. That's how small this room is. I mean, if it's really extreme, then maybe a hoodie. But apart from that,
I'm
it's
gonna
pretty good.
wear a hoodie
Yeah,
next time.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But apart from that,
Whereas I am, of course, a ripped Adonis and a
of course you are.
beacon to male muscularity, and so
Of course you
therefore
are.
with that I have to wear gloves because I haven't got the subcutaneous layers of fat
Yeah.
you were
There we go.
referencing. By
There
the
you go.
way, your convenience stores in Japan, would they sell hot water bottles?
I would not be
Because I
surprised.
certainly need one
Ah,
now.
I know what they would sell. They would sell those hand warmers. You know, those ones you break up. I bet you they would sell those. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, on that note, I hope you have a lovely lovely rest of the day, whatever you're doing, whatever you're up to. And again, Ralph, thank you so much as always for being a wonderful presence and inspiration for us all on this podcast. Anyway, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for
Yeah.
listening.
Bye.
Bye.